one of the most important things we do is a really clear opening statement. Opening statements are a bit like jurisdictional checks, right? They bring things on the right page, make sure people know what's happening next, what your role is, what their role is, and they provide some crucial information, right? Now, opening statements, and there's a lot to it. I've got a short slide on what you should include as a minimum, yeah. But I always encourage people to use a prompt sheet. And I still have one of my own prompt sheets. So I do facilitative mediations for a panel here in Queensland. And most of my work is in conferencing and conciliations where I learn the facilitative model, but then I have a statutory framework or a regulatory body or a workplace organization that I'm representing. So I will adjust my opening statement to fit that framework. But when I'm practicing a purely facilitative model, I still use a prompt sheet, right? And it's just little points. It's not a script. It's just saying, make sure you remind them of your role, confidentiality, make sure you check if they've set aside enough time, because the number of times one person has come into mediation going, I had 2 hours, and the other one going, I thought it was 6 hours. We want to make sure of all those things early. And the other thing we do is we set ground rules, and you might not call it ground rules because that feels a bit like school, but it's basically your expectations of individuals in the conversation, and you get their agreement. So if people do start becoming destructive and unhelpful with the language, interrupting each other, shouting, calling names, anything that steps beyond what you have agreed to as the conduct of parties, you can immediately remind them of their agreement at the start to abide by those rules. Okay. I kind of call it a working agreement for the day. Before we get started, I'd like to just set aside some time to confirm our working agreement. And I say, I'm sure we won't need this today, but I want to be clear that as part of this mediation, we will not interrupt each other. We will not make personal insults, comments, and attack each other, right? And there will be no threats, especially no threats to safety and anything that can be considered to be bad faith. Now, I just want to check before we keep going that you agree to continuing with this process on those terms. And they will, right? No one will sit there and go, no, I won't. But then once you've got that, it's a contract. They've said, yes, I will. Then when things come up again, you can warn them, look, we agreed to not call each other names today. And I've heard you just say that. For the purposes of this mediation, I'd like to remind you of our rules. So we use all these parts of an opening statement to set up the whole process for success.